to you? The hell do you think you're doing bringing that noisy hunk of shit around here at midnight? This is a private road, all right? Who are you? And who are you here to see, huh?
Nobody, sir. We just got lost and a little turned around.
Oh, horse shit.
Welcome, everybody. You are getting Lost in Plot, the show where we focus on story first, but not exclusively, across the mediums of film, television, video games, really anything with a story. I am Wade, that's my brother Jake, and today we have for you Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Time to go get Lost in Plot. Now, we realized this one came out a couple years ago.
Yep.
But just recently, Quentin Tarantino published a novelization of the film. That just released. He's doing the interview round, so we thought, hey, why the hell not? It's a unique opportunity. We'll go back and review Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, it's been out 2 years, so we're going to talk about spoilers, but hopefully you've seen it by now.
You should have seen it by now.
Fair enough. Here we go. Rick Dalton gained fame and fortune, starring in a 1950s television western, but now is struggling to find meaningful work in a Hollywood he doesn't recognize anymore. He spends his time drinking and palling around with Cliff Booth, his easygoing best friend and longtime stunt double. He also lives next door to Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate, the famous film director and budding actress whose lives are forever altered by members of the Manson family. So this one it's hard to figure out what Quentin was trying to say with it, because I heard him in interviews say that this was one he wrote between films. He kind of picked it up and put it down, picked it up and put it down until he picked it up and he couldn't put it down, and that's when he just muscled right through and finished it. Now, it comes in at a running time of 2 hours and 40 minutes, too. This is a long one for him. And it really is a story that's about, more than anything else, a time and a place. It's just a slice right out of it.
Definitely.
But as I look at it, just talking about thematics, I see a lot of masculinity in the theme.
Yeah.
Chaos and order kind of playing off each other. That comes about many times with the Rick Dalton character and the Cliff Booth character, who are, you know, kind of set in their ways. They're on easy street for a while.
Right.
They've made it in Hollywood, but suddenly things are changing. That chaos is coming into the picture.
Well, even more so because Rick Dalton made his name by playing these classic masculine characters,
tough guys,
right? The cowboys with their hair slicked back and nice and short, very conservative type looking. And now it's the 60s and the hippie movement is out there and it's threatening him. And the directors wants him to have longer hair and to have frilly jackets and things like that. And he's not comfortable with it because it threatens his career and how he kind of made his dough.
And that's kind of the chaos element of it.
Exactly.
But more than just the chaos, which you can see as the hippies, you can see as like the Manson family, more of like the chaos coming into it versus order. It's how these men react to that chaos, to that entropy of their lives, if you think of it that way. Kind of breaking down the things that they know, now it's moving into a totally different direction. But how they respond and how they react to a lot of these things is kind of, I think, the lesson that I kind of take from this film.
Oh, I agree. There's no doubt. I mean, they fall back on what they know and who they are. And it's like a brave new world for them. It's like, how am I, with my sensibilities and my life experience, how am I going to adjust to this new world with these new values and how everybody's going to treat me? Well, I'm just going to fall back and I'm going to do what I know, and we're going to test whether or not it's going to be tried and true and whether or not I have a place in this new world.
So let's go ahead and talk about the man who wrote it. We've said his name a few times, Quentin Tarantino. Here we go.
That's right. Now, say my name.
Talking about who wrote it, it is obviously Quentin Tarantino. And to look at his notable credits, we'd spend all day and then some, I feel
You
like.
already know what they are.
It's interesting sometimes to look at the films that he wrote and directed, and then just look at the films that he wrote. Like True Romance, Natural Born Killers, From Dusk Till Dawn, those other like writing credits that are out there that he didn't actually direct.
I think he's got a writing credit on Crimson Tide too, doesn't he?
I don't know if he's credited, but he did do a kind of a punch-up scene. That's a good way to describe it. And the sad thing is, he's told us we're only getting 10 films from him. That leaves us with one left. We've got 9, and only one on the horizon for Quentin Tarantino. He's kind of said that he said maybe everything that he's wanted to say with these first 9, and the 10th is just going to be kind of his epilogue for his career. So take that as you will. Tarantino is our writer for it. Anything from his work that you wanted to bring up before we break your story?
Well, look, Tarantino for me is a mixed bag. I'm not one of these people who's like anything he puts his name on he loves. I mean, there's movies that he did that I do not like. Kill Bill Volume 2, Death Proof, The Hateful Eight. These are lesser entries. Inglourious Bastards I didn't care for. These are lesser entries that I don't particularly like and wouldn't revisit. But, you know, on the flip side of the coin, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Reservoir Dogs, these are just seminal crime movies and really just outstanding examples of the work. But for me, I think this might be the best that he's done. We'll see. We'll find out when Dead or Alive.
The best of the 9?
We'll find out.
Okay. Well,
I'm not going to spoil it now.
Leave it there, but you haven't seen the audience score, so I'll just ask you, what do you think is top for the audience score of his works?
Django?
No.
Pulp Fiction?
Pulp Fiction.
All right, but that makes
Pulp Fiction
sense.
with an audience score of 9.0. Now, Django also came in very high. I think it's around an 8.6.
Django, too long. Too long. Too goddamn long.
But what I like to see is a lot of love for Jackie Brown.
Oh, I love
kind
that
of like
movie.
The Forgotten One.
Love
It's
that
his third film. Mm-hmm. So good. And I still feel like it's underappreciated. Maybe not, but the audience seems to really like it.
One of Samuel Jackson's best roles.
Yeah. Very good. So that's who wrote it. Now let's get to the moment that you are going to break this story.
Yes, let's do it. All right, so my one thing for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is, well, it's a Tarantino movie, so it's character. Now, I know that's pretty lame. He always has amazing characters. They're bold, they're unique, and all of them come with a very strong perspective on the world, okay? So we're going to break this down in a different subsect. We're going to talk about this character, my favorite character from the movie, Rick Dalton, and what makes him so great. And the one thing for his character that I liked a great deal is his vulnerability, okay? So Rick Dalton he's not really the aging Hollywood actor, but he's no longer a young Hollywood actor. He's had his success, and now it seems to be tapering off, and he can see the twilight of his career, even though he's basically approaching 40, and there's no reason for him to kind of, act that way, but that's the way things have turned out. Now, we get to see him at his most embarrassing and his most vulnerable moments, right? We see him crying initially when Al Pacino tries to offer him to take Westerns in Italy. Right? We see him cry again in front of a little girl when he's on the set of the pilot because he's sad over reading a cowboy book. And we see him throw a complete temper tantrum when he forgets his lines and goes back to his trailer and he's berating himself in the mirror. I mean, these are low moments. These are the type of private moments you don't want anyone to see. So how then does he still come off being heroic and so incredibly likable that we relate to all of his vulnerabilities, to the fact that he feels like, I'm getting older, I'm not as useful as I was, I'm going to be discarded, I don't have a place in this new world, nobody likes the type of roles I used to play, and still, he guts it out. And by the end of the movie, he's found something. He's found the strength to kind of survive in this new world, and he's found a versatility, and he's also reaffirmed that he has what it takes, his talent, his gusto. But the vulnerability for me was so unique. You don't see that in masculine heroes that come off as well as Rick Dalton does.
No, and by the end of the film, he becomes that hero. He becomes the hero that he plays in all the films. He becomes that tough guy. And that's another thing that we see a lot of is the comparison between the tough guy on-screen persona versus the real-life guy with all of his vulnerabilities. And that really is the best thing, is you can have all these vulnerabilities and it makes it that more impactful when you exude strength.
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with all of the chaos that's kind of breaking in and ruining your world, and yet how do you react to that? And I think one of the best scenes to show that is when he's throwing that fit in his trailer, because all that pressure is just crashing down on the guy. And I think all of us have been there at one time or another. But how does he respond to it? He goes out there and he delivers an amazing performance.
He does, yeah. It's a great scene.
And it's you can foreshadow that with like the chaos of the Manson family when they showed up towards the end of the film, and how these two guys, one legitimate tough guy, Cliff Booth,
yeah,
and then Rick Dalton, respond to them. And it's a great moment there too. We'll go ahead and talk about that now before we get into Dead or Alive.
Sure.
But I think with the Manson family, you kind of see that play. And like the character of Cliff Booth is kind of that traditional masculinity, and he's one that, interestingly enough, gets put in a lot of morally compromising situations. I don't know what we can say for them because there's a story about he killed his wife, but then he
Supposedly.
Yeah.
You don't see it.
Supposedly. He picks up the hippie girl.
Yep.
And she propositions him right away.
Yeah.
And it's a telling moment that he declines that. He's like, no, you're probably underage. I'm not gonna do that. Okay. He's put in the power position at that point, but he controls himself.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes out into Spawn Ranch, where he's completely outnumbered by these hippie girls, these trashy hippies, and their two guys, Tex and the other one.
That's right.
To check on an old friend of his, this old man that he's afraid is being taken advantage of and just being run out of his property here.
And he cares about the guy. He wants to know that he's not being exploited or taken advantage, right? At great peril to himself, he decides he's going to go in there and check on the guy and see for himself.
And there again, amazing control. He comes back, he finds Rick's car, that the tire's been flattened. This idiot is up there laughing at him, knocks him on his ass. Maybe one of my favorite scenes in the film. He knocks him on his ass. He sees this army of dirty, trashy hippie girls coming towards him, and he stops them. He stops them with a single finger. He says, "Don't you take another step." And they all stop because they've seen this is a dangerous man. This man just knocked his ass out. He's bleeding on the ground. He's going to make him fix that tire. He's going to get up and fix that tire first before any of the little dirty hippie girls can come and wipe his blood off. You take care of that now. That's an amazing scene. And we'll get into more of this in the next session, but anything to add before we say what is obvious here about whether this film is dead or alive?
No, let's get right to it. Dead or alive.
We're back, and it's Dead or Alive time for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'll go ahead and go first. This is absolutely alive for me. There's no suspense about it.
Be okay.
I run it in at an 8 out of 10, I think. It was a pretty amazing film. The acting performances are second to none. It's a great story. If I have a critique for it, I'd say if it were me, I'd probably take it back into the editing room and I'd cut it down a little bit. 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'd cut out some of the things that, they really do a good job to show you what Hollywood was like in this particular year, but don't kind of add to the story. So I might have just sheared a little bit of that off. From what I heard, Tarantino had even more stuff that he didn't put in, so maybe he did edit himself down a little bit. But this one is certainly alive for me, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
And it's alive for me as well. And I come in a bit higher. I'm at a 9 out of 10 for this movie. I really like this movie. Now look, I can recognize that there's some oddities to it, right? It's really just 2 days in the life of these two guys, these two buddies, and you see what happens, and it's just set against the backdrop of the Manson family murders, right? And that's it. So in terms of a story sense, it's no great shakes. It's basically just 2 days in the life of these guys. But the scene work is impeccable. The characters are outstanding. And I just love these two characters. I like Rick and Cliff, all right? To me, it felt like when I was a little kid and you watch movies and you pick out your heroes that you want to emulate and stuff, I was getting those types of vibes. It's like, man, these guys, they're cool, they're vulnerable. Like, I don't know. There's just something about them that I really liked watching on film. It just seemed refreshing to me that we don't get these types of characters. As I mean, the Tarantino character, you don't ever get these types of characters unless he's writing them for you. But these guys were fantastic. They were a breath of fresh air in terms of the cinematic landscape and the types of heroes that were always being fed, the stoic kind of ultra-violent people. And here you got these two guys, which is a nice contrast.
Yeah. Let's talk about that twist scene at the end with the Manson family supposed killings. I've talked a lot about masculinity, and to kind of put a bow on that and define it, it's like if you look at masculinity as being capable of great violence but controlling it. Always being in control. And that's what you see out of these characters, these old kind of heroic, the heroes of old Hollywood that we've kind of lost a lot today.
Mm-hmm.
They're capable of doing some terrible things, but they're in control. And you see that represented really clearly by Cliff's dog. Cliff's dog is a killer. It's a pit bull. Could rip your face off. But
Brandy,
that's right. I forgot Brandy's name. But you see it doesn't budge a single inch when it's feeding time until he tells it it's okay. Which makes it that much more satisfying when those filthy...
when he lets it loose.
Hippies, when Tex has got the gun pointed at him and a simple sends him off and just bites his balls off and his nuts off. They're all gone.
That's what happened. And boy, the actors and actresses who played those hippies were spot on. They were outstanding.
Oh, they were.
I mean, there's not a bad actor.
This is a seriously dangerous guy. You don't get it in the film, but he's got backstory. I think maybe in the novel they'll expound on it. Like he's a veteran, and he's like a serious killer. And you get that when he has the fight with Bruce Lee. That's another time where it's just like
what a moment.
the real
That's
life
great
tough
scene.
guy versus the on-screen tough guy, and what's
Right.
really going to happen there. So like Cliff is like an awesome character for that. You know he's going to be a dangerous killer guy, but he's always in control of it until he needs to let it loose. And when he lets it loose, man, he lets it loose. And that's such a satisfying ending there.
That it is. And we haven't even talked about what I think is a third pillar of this movie, which is Margot Robbie's Sharon Tate.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think this plays in with your critique is more on masculine icons, that type of thing. What do you think Sharon Tate adds to the mix?
Yeah, that's a good question of she's the woman that kind of needs protecting, right? I mean, everything we see of her, she just seems like a really nice person.
Yeah, she
like a
seems
nice
wonderful.
person.
She seems
She's a
breezy.
charming actress.
She's easygoing. Everybody
Yeah.
seems to get along with her. She's the last person who deserves what actually happened to her from these
Exactly.
terrible people.
She's the last person that ever would have deserved it. So, and I think by the end of the film, what she does and what Quentin has done is made it so like, hey, we all bought the ticket thinking at the end of the film the Manson family's going to come and do these grisly murders that we all know about. You know? And then it's so refreshing at the end when it doesn't happen.
Rick Dalton's out there in his robe drinking margaritas and yelling at the hippies for parking on his street.
It's like, yeah, what if Sharon Tate had lived next to Rick Dalton in real life? Wouldn't that have been something if they, those dirty damn hippies went to the wrong house?
You picked the wrong house.
Goddamn house.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that she did a fantastic job. I mean, she certainly holds the screen, and you get to see her love of movies and wanting to just be an actress. She's a total innocent, and like you said,
kind of just enjoy watching her. She's
last
nice.
person
She
that
makes you
really
smile. She makes
deserved
you feel good.
Such a horrible, awful thing to happen to her.
Yeah.
And you think you want that the whole time you're waiting in the movie to kind of get to that scene, and the way he just kind of turns it around and twists it is, God, I was howling with laughter at the movie theater when I saw that. I don't know if there's been a more satisfying finale to a film.
No, not when he gets
Certainly
not
not
when he gets the flamethrower out. It's over. I mean, that was over. If you're not won over by that, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So some very interesting themes. You guys are going to have to let us know what you think. Hopefully you like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as much as we did.
Hopefully you do. Let us know in the comments down below. What are your favorite Tarantino movies? How do you rank this one against all of his other entries? Guys, if you like this video, please leave us a thumbs. If you love this video, consider a subscription, because we are going to be back and we'll see you on the next one.